Sarah Johnson stared at the eviction notice taped to her apartment door, the bold red letters blurring through her tears. At 23, she was working 2 minimum wage jobs in Philadelphia, barely making enough to cover rent in her rundown studio apartment. The electricity had been shut off last week, and she'd been showering at the local gym where she cleaned floors after hours. Her mother's medical bills from her cancer treatment had drained what little savings Sarah had managed to accumulate, and now, with this eviction notice, she felt completely defeated. The next morning, Sarah huddled in the corner of a public library, seeking warmth and free Wi-Fi. Her community college degree in business administration hadn't opened any doors, and her student loans loomed over her like a dark cloud. She scrolled mindlessly through job listings on her cracked phone screen, knowing that another minimum wage position wouldn't change her circumstances. The coffee she'd splurged on, her one luxury for the day, had grown cold beside her. "You should be investing that coffee money," joked an elderly man at the next table, nodding toward her cup. Sarah forced a polite smile, though the comment stung. The man turned his tablet toward her. "I'm watching Warren Buffett's annual shareholder meeting. This guy started with next to nothing too, you know." Sarah nodded, not really interested, but the man continued, "His advice isn't just for rich folks. It's actually more valuable for young people like you." Out of politeness, Sarah glanced at the screen. Warren Buffett, with his unassuming demeanor and straightforward wisdom, was explaining his investment philosophy. "The most important investment you can make is in yourself," he said. Something about his unpretentious manner caught Sarah's attention. Unlike the get-rich-quick gurus she occasionally saw advertised online, Buffett spoke about patience, discipline, and making informed decisions. After the man left, Sarah remained in the library, searching for more videos of Buffett. She watched interviews spanning decades, noting how consistent his advice remained. Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. The simplicity resonated with her. She had nothing to lose by learning more. She had already lost almost everything else. That night, in her dark apartment, Sarah used the last of her phone battery to download several free ebooks about Buffett's investment strategies. She fell asleep with a strange feeling she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not the desperate hope of winning the lottery, but something more substantial. The hope that comes from discovering a path forward, however difficult it might be. The next day, Sarah visited her local bank and opened a savings account with the $43 she had managed to save in a jar. The bank representative looked at her skeptically when she inquired about investment options, but Sarah didn't care. She remembered Buffett's words about the power of compound interest and the importance of starting early, no matter how small the beginning. On her bus ride to her evening shift at the diner, Sarah made a decision. She would give herself 1 year to learn everything she could about investing the Buffett way. She would cut expenses even further, increase her income however possible, and start building her financial knowledge. As the bus rattled through the streets of Philadelphia, Sarah felt a shift within herself, a determination that would change the course of her life. Sarah's tiny apartment became her personal finance classroom. She taped Buffett quotes to her bathroom mirror and refrigerator door. "The more you learn, the more you earn," stared back at her as she brushed her teeth each morning. She had convinced her landlord to give her 1 more month to catch up on rent, promising to work extra hours cleaning the building's common areas. At the diner where she waited tables, Sarah started engaging customers in conversations about their work. A regular customer who worked as a bookkeeper mentioned that her firm needed weekend help organizing files. Sarah immediately offered her services, adding a 3rd job to her already packed schedule. The extra $100 a week went straight into her savings account, untouched. The library became Sarah's second home. She devoured books on accounting, business valuation, and market analysis. She learned that Buffett spent 80% of his day reading, so she carried printed articles everywhere, reading during her bus commutes and lunch breaks. She started understanding financial statements, learning to identify companies with strong fundamentals and competitive advantages, what Buffett called economic moats. One afternoon, a customer left behind a copy of The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, Buffett's mentor. Sarah recognized the title immediately from her research. When the customer didn't return for it, the manager let her keep the book. Sarah stayed up all night reading it, highlighting passages and making notes in the margins. The concept of margin of safety and value investing clicked for her in a way that theoretical college courses never had. 6 months into her self-education journey, Sarah had saved $2,800, more money than she'd ever had at once. Following Buffett's advice to never invest in a business you cannot understand, she focused her research on industries she encountered daily. She noticed how the diner where she worked ordered supplies from the same food distribution company that served most restaurants in the area. After researching the company, she discovered it was publicly traded with consistent dividends and growth potential. With trembling hands, Sarah opened a discount brokerage account and invested $2,000 in the food distribution company. She kept $800 as her emergency fund, remembering Buffett's warning never to be forced to sell at the wrong time due to cash needs. The day she made her first investment, she celebrated by allowing herself a real dinner instead of the ramen noodles that had become her staple. Sarah's friends couldn't understand her new lifestyle. They stopped inviting her out when she consistently declined to spend money on entertainment. "I'm investing in my future," she would explain, but they rolled their eyes. The loneliness was difficult, but Sarah found community in online investment forums where she could discuss ideas with like-minded people. She started a blog documenting her journey, partly to clarify her own thinking and partly to keep herself accountable. By the end of her first year of following Buffett's principles, Sarah had not only kept her apartment, but had invested nearly $6,000 across 3 different companies she had thoroughly researched. Her blog had gained a small following of other young people interested in value investing, and she had started receiving questions from readers about how to begin their own investment journeys. The girl who had once cried over an eviction notice was now reading annual reports before bed and dreaming of compound returns. 3 years into her investment journey, Sarah sat in a coffee shop reviewing her portfolio, which had grown to $24,000. Her disciplined approach was paying off, with her initial investments showing solid gains. She had been promoted to manager at the diner, giving her more stable hours and slightly better pay. Her blog, Buffett on a Budget, now generated a small monthly income from affiliate links to financial books and tools she recommended. Sarah's biggest investment breakthrough came unexpectedly. A small tech company she had invested in was acquired by a larger corporation, doubling the value of her shares overnight. She remembered Buffett's advice about not getting emotional about investments and resisted the urge to sell immediately. Instead, she carefully evaluated the acquiring company and decided to hold her shares, believing in the long-term synergy of the merger. The extra money allowed Sarah to move to a slightly better apartment in a safer neighborhood. She kept her lifestyle frugal, following Buffett's example of modest living despite growing wealth. Her new place had reliable internet, which enabled her to take online courses in financial analysis and business valuation. She still furnished her apartment with secondhand items, telling herself, "Price is what you pay, value is what you get." Another Buffett principle she had internalized. Sarah's blog continued to grow, attracting the attention of a financial education website that offered her a part-time position creating content for young investors. The irony wasn't lost on her. 4 years ago, she couldn't get an interview for an entry-level office job, and now companies were reaching out to her. She accepted the position, which allowed her to reduce her diner hours and focus more on investing and writing. At 27, Sarah attended her first Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting in Omaha, Nebraska. She saved for months to make the trip, considering it both an educational expense and a pilgrimage. Sitting among thousands of shareholders, many far wealthier than she could imagine, Sarah felt a sense of belonging. These were people who understood delayed gratification and the power of compound interest, concepts that had transformed her life. During the question and answer session, Sarah gathered her courage and approached the microphone. With a slightly shaking voice, she thanked Buffett for the wisdom he had shared over the years and briefly told her story of going from near homelessness to building a growing investment portfolio. Buffett smiled warmly and responded, "The best investment you made wasn't in stocks. It was in yourself and your knowledge. Keep going. The magic of compounding works in careers and knowledge just as it does in finance." That exchange was captured by several financial news outlets, and Sarah's blog subscribers quadrupled overnight. A publisher reached out about the possibility of her writing a book aimed at young people interested in value investing. Sarah negotiated the deal carefully, insisting on maintaining control over the content and ensuring the book would be affordable for readers on tight budgets. By her 5th year of investing, Sarah's portfolio had grown to just over $100,000. While not yet a millionaire, she had achieved financial stability, something that had once seemed impossible. She had no debt, a growing investment portfolio, multiple income streams, and increasing recognition in the financial education space. The eviction notices and cold apartments were becoming distant memories, replaced by spreadsheets, investment theses, and a growing confidence in her financial future. Sarah's book, From Eviction to Investing, A Buffett-Inspired Journey, became a surprise bestseller in the personal finance category. She had written it in the evenings after work, pouring her heart into each chapter and making complex investing concepts accessible to beginners. The advance in royalties pushed her net worth to $250,000 by her 30th birthday, a milestone that seemed surreal to someone who had once counted pennies for bus fare. The book's success led to speaking invitations at colleges and financial literacy events. Sarah initially felt like an imposter. Who was she to give advice when she wasn't even a millionaire yet? But she remembered Buffett's humility despite his billions and focused on sharing her authentic journey rather than positioning herself as an expert. Her relatability resonated with audiences, particularly young women from disadvantaged backgrounds who had never seen themselves represented in financial spaces. Sarah's investment strategy remained disciplined and Buffett-inspired. She avoided hot trends and speculative investments, focusing instead on companies with strong fundamentals, good management, and reasonable valuations. When the market experienced a significant correction, she followed Buffett's advice to be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. Investing her book proceeds into quality companies at discounted prices. A turning point came when Sarah identified a small manufacturing company that supplied components to several major industries. The company was family-owned, undervalued, and had a strong competitive advantage in its niche. Sarah invested a significant portion of her portfolio, $100,000, in this single opportunity, a move that would have terrified her years earlier but now felt calculated rather than risky. She had done months of research, even visiting their facilities and speaking with management. Within 2 years, the manufacturing company's value tripled as larger corporations recognized its strategic importance in the supply chain. Sarah's investment grew to over $300,000, accelerating her journey toward her first million. She continued living below her means, now residing in a modest condo she had purchased, her first real estate investment. Her friends from the diner days barely recognized the confident woman she had become, though Sarah made sure to never lose touch with where she had started. Sarah's media presence expanded to include a podcast where she interviewed successful investors about their beginnings and strategies. Through these connections, she met a venture capitalist who was impressed by her analytical skills and offered her a position as an analyst at his firm. The salary was 3 times what she had ever made, with potential bonuses based on investment performance. After careful consideration, Sarah accepted, viewing it as another investment in herself and her financial education. The venture capital position exposed Sarah to a new world of investment opportunities. While maintaining her personal portfolio of publicly traded companies, she now evaluated private businesses seeking growth capital. She applied the same Buffett-inspired principles, understanding the business model, assessing the economic moat, and valuing management integrity above all. Her background gave her a unique perspective. She could relate to entrepreneurs who had built something from nothing. By her 33rd birthday, Sarah's combined investments, book royalties, speaking fees, and salary pushed her net worth over the $1 million mark. She celebrated quietly, taking her mother, now in remission, to dinner at the diner where she had once worked. As they sat in a booth she had cleaned thousands of times, Sarah reflected on the distance she had traveled. Not just financially, but in confidence, knowledge, and purpose. The waitress who served them had no idea that the polite customer leaving a generous tip had once been in her shoes, dreaming of a different life. At 35, Sarah's net worth had grown to $2.3 million. Her investment portfolio was diversified across public equities, real estate, and select private companies. She had left the venture capital firm to start her own small investment fund, focusing on businesses that created economic opportunities in underserved communities. The fund's mission reflected her personal journey, using capital to create pathways for others facing the same barriers she had overcome. Sarah's Philadelphia office was intentionally located in the neighborhood where she had once faced eviction. She hired local residents, providing not just jobs, but financial education and investment opportunities. Every employee received equity in the fund and mentoring on personal finance. Sarah implemented profit sharing and educational benefits, creating the supportive environment she had wished for during her struggling years. The Buffett on a Budget blog had evolved into a comprehensive financial education platform, offering free courses alongside premium content. For every paid subscription, Sarah provided free access to someone from a low-income background. The platform partnered with community colleges and high schools in disadvantaged areas, bringing investment education to places where the stock market had always seemed like a game for the wealthy. Sarah's annual pilgrimage to the Berkshire Hathaway meeting continued, but now she brought 10 scholarship recipients each year, young people who showed promise but lacked resources. During one meeting, Warren Buffett himself mentioned Sarah's story during his remarks, citing her as an example of how financial knowledge could change trajectories. After the meeting, they spoke briefly, and Sarah thanked him for being the distant mentor who had guided her journey. On the 10th anniversary of the day she had first watched Buffett's video in the library, Sarah launched her most ambitious project, a nonprofit foundation providing micro-investments and financial education to women in poverty. The foundation's model was based on her own experience, identifying motivated individuals, providing them with knowledge and initial capital, and supporting their journey toward financial independence. The first cohort included 50 women from her old neighborhood. Sarah's personal life had evolved alongside her financial success. She had married David, an urban planning professor she met at a community development conference. They lived in a comfortable but modest home, following Buffett's example of lifestyle restraint despite financial capacity. Their decision to remain in Philadelphia rather than move to New York or other financial centers reflected their commitment to community reinvestment and local impact. The media narrative around Sarah had shifted from rags to riches to something more nuanced, a story about the democratization of financial knowledge and the power of patient capital. She was frequently asked about her secret to success, and her answer remained consistent. There was no secret and no overnight success. I applied Buffett's principles consistently for years, living below my means, investing in my education, focusing on value rather than price, and thinking long-term when everyone else was thinking short-term. As Sarah mentored a young woman who reminded her of herself a decade earlier, she reflected on the true nature of wealth. Her millions mattered less than the security, options, and impact they represented. The scared girl crying over an eviction notice could never have imagined the woman she would become. Not just financially independent, but a conduit for others' transformation. In her office, alongside her degrees and awards, hung a framed quote from Warren Buffett that had guided her journey. "Someone's sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago." Sarah had planted her tree in the most barren soil, and now many others were beginning to enjoy its shade. As Sarah's story reminds us, true wealth isn't measured solely by the numbers in our bank accounts, but by the journey we undertake to transform our circumstances. From a library corner with a cold cup of coffee to building a legacy that lifts others, Her path shows us that our beginnings never define our endings. Perhaps the most powerful lesson in Sarah's journey isn't about money at all. It's about the courage to believe in possibility when everything around you suggests otherwise. It's about the quiet dignity of making small, consistent choices day after day, even when no one is watching and results seem distant. We all face our own eviction notices in life, moments when we feel the ground beneath us giving way. But like Sarah discovered, wisdom often finds us in our darkest hours, offering not an escape, but a path forward. Warren Buffett's principles worked not because they were magical, but because they aligned with fundamental truths about patience, discipline, and the power of compound growth, in finances and in character. As you reflect on your own journey, remember that the most important investment will always be the one you make in yourself. Your circumstances today are just that. Circumstances, not conclusions. The distance between where you are and where you dream of being is bridged by the small decisions you make each day. Sarah's story isn't exceptional because she became a millionaire. It's exceptional because she refused to surrender her future to her present difficulties. That same power to plant trees under whose shade you may never sit lives in each of us. What tree will you plant today? If Sarah's journey resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What part of her story touched you the most? Or perhaps you have your own story of transformation you'd like to share? Your experiences might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If you found value in this video, please consider subscribing to our channel. We share stories of resilience, practical financial wisdom, and pathways to creating the life you deserve, no matter where you're starting from. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an opportunity to be inspired and equipped for your own journey. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for spending this time with us today. Your attention is the most valuable currency you possess, and I'm truly grateful you chose to invest it here. Until next time, keep planting those seeds of change.